Hi everybody, welcome to Digital Tech Join. In this section, we are going to learn using VB.NET, Visual Studio.NET in Visual Studio 2019, and we are going to cover the following topics. We are going to design a login form. We are going to connect to MSSQL database using Microsoft Enterprise Library, and we call a procedure by passing in the required parameters, and obviously we then write the actual code to log in and authenticate any users. So first I'll show you the database, what database setup I have done. So I'm using MS SQL database, and I've created a database with one table having the user information and some already pre-filled information. So we will actually connect to this database. So database name is trade signals, and I've got user table which has following records. So we are going to use Visual Studio. We are going to work with desktop application today, and let's go ahead and create a project and select Windows. So here, so we have this Windows Form app. So this is a desktop based application. We click on next, we select our, we change to login demo. So we create this. So this is a setup for the VB.NET environment, and as you see, we have app.config. Unlike in web application where we have app.json settings, so we have app.config, and we have a default form one created. And we also have a program class where actually we set the starter form. So let's go ahead. Before we start, let's install the required packages. Since we are going to use Enterprise Library to connect with the work with database, you're supposed to install that library. So we say my enterprise library. So we search for Enterprise Library, and you can see we are supposed to install Enterprise Library, and we click on data and we say install. The Enterprise Library Data Access Application block simplifies the development of tasks that implements common data access functionality. It's getting installed. Yeah, accept and fine. So you can see it is already installed. You can see the reference Microsoft Practice Enterprise Library. Okay. Fine. So it's installed it. Now once the reference is added, we need to add the connection string to our database. So I have already saved the connection string. Let's copy this and explain the connection string. I'm sure it's simple, but you just have to paste it over here. Now see, this is the connection string. We have used the name of the connection string D provider, database provider, and the connection string local database trade signal, which I just showed you, and this is the connection string is set up. Now what we do is that we create a class, we create a folder. You can directly create the class also, but just for understanding purpose, let's create a class over here as DB base class. So this class will actually refer to the, let's say, practices data. Okay, we refer this, and then we create a public database variable DB. We create a base class for this. So let's create a base class, a constructor, sorry. Okay, and we don't require to pass any parameter. What we are going to do is that say database provider factory new database db equals to, and we'll assign this factory dot create provider. This is the name of the connection string that I created. Now this class which I created basically will create a database connection and will initialize this DB object. So this is a D provider which I've created over here. We create a class. Now in order to connect to our database, let's also add one more class as users or user management, DAL user management. So we have created a class and we will inherit this DB base class. In this class, what we are going to do is that we are going to call the procedure. We created a procedure in database as USP authenticate user. Now, this procedure takes two parameters, username and password. We are going to pass these parameters and authenticate whether the user is available in the database or not. Okay. So what are we going to do? The return type will be data set. So we will add this system.data.com and we create a public data set authenticate user params object parameters. So this will hold multiple parameters. So you don't have to individually declare variables as username, password. And if you happen to pass a third parameter, if the need come, you'll be able to pass it because this holds like an array. So okay. So now we write the actual code. We say data set yes new data set as users, and we say using. Okay, we need to also have a command object. db command using db dot get stored procedure, and you pass in the procedure in USP authenticate user. Now we are calling the procedure which I just showed, and then we need to pass in the parameters. And this DB object is actually coming from the base class. If you look, the base class which I created called a DB base. Okay. So now we pass in the required parameters. So the procedure expects two parameters called username and password. So we need to pass that. So we pass by calling the DB variable, add in parameters, command, and this is the first parameter. Username and the type string. Okay, DB string and parameters and pass in the first element. So parameter, as I told you, it's an array, so I'm passing the first element, that is a username. Just copy this and paste it and just change this to password. And this I change it to the second element, 1 password. So once we passed it, we just need to execute it. Just add a try catch. Okay, and we pass in the ds dataset. We just declared it over here, and we say db.execute dataset, and we pass in the command object, which has a procedure name as well as the parameters. So once this is executed, we pass in the return dataset which we created. So we created this temporary dataset, then we are calling the procedure, and then once the procedure executed, we are returning the dataset. I hope this is clear, right? Now we have created the base class that creates a connection to the database. Okay, and then we are calling that base class in our user management database layer class, which will actually execute the procedure, pass in the parameter, return the dataset to the calling method. Now let's create the login form. So we say add Windows form, we say login. Okay, so let's design this login form. So we say, okay, we set the height over here. We can also add a logo or an image. So we can say, we can use the toolbox and we can select the image. So this is a picture box, we add that and we select the picture, import. Now picture mode, we can say stretch, and then we set this just to look good, and we can change it login demo. So this is a title. Now we add the label, and we name this enter username. Okay, and then we add the text box. We copy it, we paste it, and then we say password, enter password. We add a button, login and close. So we say login and exit or close. Name this, we name all this object. We say with a proper prefix, that is txt username, and then txt password, and btn login and btn exit. It's a good practice to name it according to the control prefix. Now our login screen is ready. We can just reduce the size and so that it looks good. We can delete this label. Just align it. We can set this bold. All these formatting options are there in this property. Oops. Okay, So we have named it. Now let's go ahead and write the code for it. So I double click on this and write the code for the login. So I say, so this is a class which I am supposed to call DAL user management. So DAL user management, I'll just add the reference. So we have declared the user management. We create a data set object. Now we call the underscore user management dot authenticate user, and we pass in the username, and then we pass in the password. Now if it is a right username and password, then we will be able to fetch the information, but as a good practice, we first check whether the data set after calling the method is it null. If it is null, not null, that means it has fetched some records. Still we will add one more authentication or validation, checking whether the row count is greater than 0. So in these two conditions, but if the record is successfully fetched, we can actually, for the demo purpose, I'll just show you show authentication successful, and I will go ahead and also show you the data. So what I'm going to do is table dot rows and say I fetch the email address. So this is for a successful authentication, and if we have not found any record and if it is null, then we say unsuccessful authentication. So box show, we say login failed. So let's go ahead and check whether our code is working. So we'll go to the table and check what data we have already. So we have admin and digital, and password is digital. So let's log in and see. So yes, we have to change this. We say we go to the program files and say new login, because we want the login page to open. So guys, I'm just closing all the tab and fine, our login page is open. We will type in admin, and we'll click on login. Successfully, authentication is successful, and it is showing the email address also. So if you want, I'll just debug it and step you through all the workflow. 1 minute, I'll just do that. So I click on login and after debugger over here, and let's run the code now. So I type in the correct username. Okay, so 1 minute. And one more thing, since it's a login screen and it's a password, we need to set the password character as, go to the properties and select this password char and just put asterisk. So now let's see. I type in admin, click on login. So what happens first is our class object is instantiated. Okay, we are calling the DB method first, DB base class. It creates a factory, it calls and creates a connection to the database, which is created over here through Enterprise Microsoft Practice Enterprise library. Now we go ahead and we call the Authenticate method. We step into this method. The method takes a parameter, two parameters, admin, which is user and password. It calls a procedure. It passes the required parameters and execute the database. The database gets executed. We can see the data set over here. It fetches the complete information for that particular user, and then since it is not null and the row is greater than 0, it pops up the authentication message. So guys, as I mentioned at the start, we created a design form. We connected the database, MSSQL database, using Microsoft Enterprise library, and we called the procedure with the required parameters. We designed a lovely login form in VB.NET. So guys, I hope you like this video. Please do subscribe and like this channel. Thank you very much.